Welcome to APD. Today, let's take a look at the question. Now, to understand what is going on in the book of Numbers chapter 3, which is where the question is from, we have to go back to Exodus chapters 12 and 13. In chapters 12, we get the story of the Passover, right? You got the angel of death passing over the Israelites, sparing all the firstborn there, but killing all the firstborn in Egypt. So when this happens, in Exodus 13:2, we get the explanation from God. He says, "Consecrate to me all the firstborn, whatever is the first to open the womb among the people of Israel, both of man and of beast, is mine." A few verses later, we get the explanation of what this means. "When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and shall give it to you, you shall set apart to the Lord all that first opens the womb. All the firstborn of your animals that are male shall be the Lord's. Every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. Or if you will not redeem it, you shall break its neck. Every firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem." So what God does here is he claims all the firstborn of man and animals as his own. And as he's doing that, he says that you can redeem these. You can buy these back from God, really. And you can just pay this price. And so you don't have to kill these people. You don't have to kill these animals. You can buy them. There's a way to keep them. And so when he does this, it helps the people out. Obviously, you're not killing all these firstborn men. That would be a tragedy. So he sets this up because since God had mercy on them, he was showing them. It's a very clear picture of redemption here. And so there's also another explanation that God gives in the Bible. It says, why were the Israelites to do this? Why were the Israelites to provide this redemption price? What's the point? And God explains. He says, "And when in time to come your son asks you, what does this mean?" So God's already thinking about this. He's thinking, when you get to Israel, your children are going to ask you, why you're redeeming these? Why are you paying this price? Why do this? It doesn't make any sense. And he says, God says, this is what you're going to tell them. He says, "By a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt, from the house of slavery. For when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of animals. Therefore I sacrificed to the Lord all the males that first opened the womb. But all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. It shall be as a mark on your hand or frontlets between your eyes, for by a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt." So there you go. God claimed all the firstborn of Israel, both of animals and people. He also said that instead of sacrificing all the animals and people, you're to offer a lamb on their behalf. Fast forward now to Numbers chapter 3 with a view to chapter 18. God has chosen the tribe of Levi to be the ones that will take care of the tabernacle. Okay, you can read about that in Numbers. They lost their inheritance from among the other tribes of Israel, which means they wouldn't get their own land. They wouldn't get their own chunk of Israel when they got into the promised land. But God said, "I will be your inheritance." So when God claims the Levites, he sets all those Levites men who were a month old and older, he sets them aside and says, now these are going to be the firstborn sons of Israel. And he devotes them instead of all the other firstborn sons, the true firstborn sons of all the different tribes of Israel. He sets aside just the Levites as the firstborns. So he switches that. Now, along with the sacrifice of a sheep to pay for the firstborn, like we just mentioned in the book of Exodus, God sets aside a price of 5 shekels of silver. That becomes the redemption price. So for all these firstborn Levites, he says, well, these guys, instead of, you have to sacrifice sheep, but you also have to sacrifice 5 shekels of silver for each man. So as God claims the Levites for himself, he has Moses count how many Levite men there are that are a month old or older. So he takes a census. Moses finds that there's 22,000 Levite men that were alive at that time. that would qualify to be the firstborns of Israel. So then Moses has to count how many actual firstborns there are. So he goes out, counts how many actual firstborns of the nation of Israel there are, and there's 22,273. Uh-oh. Now we got a problem because it's not an equal amount, right? So you have less Israelite men to pay for the more actual firstborns. You have 273 extra guys. What are you going to do with them? Do we just slaughter them? I'm sure the nation of Israel is like, well, what do? We can't. There's no correlation here. There's nothing go between here. What do we do now? Well, God has a plan for that. I'm sure those 273 men were thankful for that, because what they could do was pay a redemption price. So they were able to pay an extra amount of money so that these men would not have to die. And the redemption price went to the tribe of Levi, went to the men that would be serving in the tabernacle. So the money was paid, the 270 men were spared, and that's really the beginning of the redemption price. That's where it came about. That idea was to spare the men from death, and to really be a sign of what redemption was all about. And that would carry through. You get into the book of Ruth, you keep going until we get to the time of Christ, where we finally see the true redemption of God's people. Well, that's my answer for today. If you got any more questions, let me know.